Boom, back in the room. It's October the 1st now. I'm going to take a trip from Chiang Mai to Pai. There'll be some commentary in the video itself, but I will try and time it so that I can tell this tale. This is the tale of Connor Sylvester Maguire, who some perhaps 12 years ago, no, scrap that, 15 years ago, found himself in the unlikely position of arrest in the North Thailand province of Pai in circumstances where he simply just wanted a little bag of yaba. Rather, not a bag of yaba because they're tablets, small little pink amphetamine tablets that my father became addicted to in the year 2008. So I'm going to try and put together this video and tell you the story of how Connor Sylvester Maguire was smuggled out of Thailand in the year 2008 in a secret compartment in the back of a van from Thailand into Malaysia. If my memory serves me well, it was around September. I got a phone call at 2, 3 a.m. I remember I was at a house party in Rathmines when I got this call. And it was from my mum to tell me that she had just gotten a phone call from Niall to inform her that dad had been locked up after the umpteenth time he was warned by the manager in the hotel where he was staying in Pai, footage of which you'll see a little bit later in this film. And he was also warned by several other business proprietors that he was on the police watch and they knew where he was going to get his yaba and he would be nabbed imminently. Well, that exact situation arose on a bright sunny morning. Himself and some other scallywags went out to the waterfall innocently to have a swim. And on the way back, they were confronted with lads jumping out of trees in their enthusiasm for the sale of yaba and marijuana. The fellas that he was with bought some marijuana, so I don't think they were in as much trouble. But my dad, being the man that he was, had a little tickle for him for some yaba, which are amphetamine tablets, basically. So on the way back into town, their taxi was pulled over. They were searched and arrested. Now, the narcotics legislation that existed some 12 or 15 years ago are very different from the narcotic legislation in effect right now. Almost a full U-turn on marijuana. They were arrested and detained at first. And then, according to Dad in the story, not sure if this was the first time he was arrested or the second time, because he was indeed arrested on two occasions for the possession of the same narcotic. He described how he was sent to this very spiritual place that just so happened to be a jail, and that when he arrived, there were these amazingly uh, charismatic and beautiful people who gave him an empty plastic Coca-Cola bottle to use as a pillow and pointed towards a dirty corner of a prison cell, whilst all the while maintaining uh, beautiful compassion and kindness for the man. On several occasions, they offered him cigarettes and food, and the other prisoners made his stay very comfortable. Meanwhile, back in Ireland, all hell broke loose. Yours truly, having gotten a little bit of sleep, or maybe I didn't sleep, maybe I didn't, and after a few days of quiet negotiation, found himself on a plane to Thailand in the middle of, I think it was my FE1s, or was it just after? My apprenticeship, anyway. Maybe I was halfway through my apprenticeship. Anyway, I arrived out only to find that Niall was in negotiation with his own lawyer a girl who he knew. Was her name Jip? If the certain memory serves me well, perhaps her name was Jip. I might be able to shed some light on this. At the same time, Dad had been awarded a court-appointed lawyer who also said that he would be able to help out in bail conditions and ultimately acquittal on the charges, like helping him buy his way out of the situation, basically. Now, at first, he was in custody. I think he was in custody when we arrived. Both myself and Sarah flew out on separate flights. Dad was unperturbed by a scale of just the seriousness of his situation at the time. So much so that he felt, upon the arrival of both my sister and me, that celebrations were in order. And so, even though he was on bail for possession of a Schedule 1 narcotic, he went back out on his Todd to find the three people, let's call them, and purchase aforementioned narcotics for a second time. And the exact same thing happened. Of course, they had an eye on him because they knew, like all addicts around the world, they don't just quit on the spot. He was going to be using again. And so the second time when they locked him up, they took his passport and tightened his bail conditions. I think there was a absolute pandemonium trying to bring about a situation where we could get his release secured. And when he was released, he was told, I think it might have been Jip who processed his bail monies, that it was very unlikely that he would avoid jail time, significant jail time, and that the best course of action would be that he would bus down to the border of Thailand and Malaysia, that he would be stowed away in a secret compartment in the back of a 4x4 Jeep, and that he would be transported over to Kuala Lumpur, where he would rendezvous with, actually, coincidentally, a friend of my mother's was ambassador in Kuala Lumpur at the time. If it wasn't him that was the ambassador, it was a friend of his. So that his arrival was already expected, and there was a huge amount of um, effort done back in Ireland to secure his safe passage home. Phone calls were made to ambassadors. Barristers were woken up at ridiculous in the morning to be told the son of Circuit Court Judge and beloved RTE DJ Conor Maguire, who at that time was in a nursing home in Blaine Row, was in trouble out in Thailand, and all efforts needed to be made to secure his safe passage home. So that's exactly what happened. I think my granny, who possibly wasn't told the full calamity of the situation, was urged to sign a more or less a blank check. The total bill could have been anywhere between 20,000 and 25,000, I'd say. The 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 what you call it, the bribe that had to be paid at the border between Malaysia and Thailand was sizable. And then when he got into Malaysia, I think there was a few people in Malaysia who were in on it to secure his emergency passport. So maybe 3 weeks after he was initially caught with the drugs and sentenced, he found himself in the Irish embassy in Malaysia in possession of an emergency passport, at which point he was directed to go straight to the airport and fly on the first plane home under the guise of an emergency family situation. And he had all the paperwork to show that that was why he had the emergency passport returned. And so the story goes that he had a laughing Buddha in a pendant around his neck, and he approached border control in Kuala Lumpur and was asked, how did he find himself in Kuala Lumpur? if he lost his passport in Kuala Lumpur, which was the case, allegedly, uh, how did he find himself in that situation, right? And he said that he had arrived in Kuala Lumpur on a business trip. At that point, he was stopped, and there was a number of questioning. There was a bit of questioning
Hello.
done off-site. He was told to wait before he could board the plane, and he said his heart was beating profoundly when the customs officer returned, handed him his emergency passport, and wished him safe travels. He landed back into Dublin by the hair of his chinny chin chin and continued to use drugs for the rest of his life. I don't know if that's a laughing matter. He had his own higher power. Let's put it that way.